What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking more about the tropics and maybe about when this thing will wake up, because we've been getting some more forecasts and some more information regarding all this, as well as some updated sea surface temperatures and data to take a look at, so that way we can give you an idea of when this thing could wake up again, because right now we are in a quiet phase of the tropic season. I mean, it's typical. It's early July, mid-July, all that stuff. However, starting around late July and early August, we're going to start seeing a few things changing where things could get really active for quite a while, from August until October. In fact, we're already seeing signs of that right now, so let's go ahead and dive right into this at this current situation that we have right here. Let's go ahead and pull up, first of all, the water vapor map right here to show you guys what's going on. There's a bunch of Sahara dust that's still in much of the tropical Atlantic over here, and there is some more activity from the intertropical convergence zone over here, or ITCZ, that's firing up at this current point in the western main development region, which that's not a very good sign if you do not want tropical hurricanes or anything like that, because what this will end up doing is it'll end up moistening up the atmosphere considerably as the days and months continue to go on. So we're going to have to pay very close attention to that. We're entering a very active period of the intertropical convergence zone, and we've been seeing an uptick of activity over there in the past 3 days. So we're going to have to pay very, very close attention to that. And we're going to have to keep an eye on what's happening on the monsoon season over a bunch of Africa over here in the Sahel. The monsoon season has really been ramping up over there in the past few weeks, and we haven't been really seeing as much Sahara dust coming off of the Sahara Desert over here. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and pull up the moisture forecast for you guys right here and see what we're looking at potentially, courtesy of the European. Here's the moisture forecast we're looking at right here. Overall, relatively dry environment for much of the tropical and subtropical Atlantic over here. The main development region starts to moisten up quite a bit because the ITCZ is firing up much more now than it was before. And now we're starting to see that Bermuda High really starting to take shape and take aim at pretty much what we're looking at over here. This Bermuda High is why I'm so concerned about this, because I don't typically see this. You don't typically see a Bermuda High like this for another couple of weeks or so. And considering that it's July 14th right now, it's pretty effing insane to see that we're already way ahead of schedule with the Bermuda High. And it's kind of just telling me that the atmosphere is reacting to what's going on in the ENSO region, because before we had an El Nino, now we're in a neutral phase. We're expected to get into a La Nina period in the next little while, so we're going to have to pay very, very, very close attention to that as we get more information and more data. Let's go ahead and pull it up for the next 5 days right here. Let's go ahead and go to 5 days out. Yeah, the monsoon season really continues to ramp up in the next 5 days across much of the Sahel, and you're starting to see breakdowns in the Sahara air layer right here. You're starting to see an increase of low pressure over here. What that will end up doing is it'll eventually push that further up into Europe. We're already starting to see signs of that happening. We're already starting to see some instances of Sahara dust getting pushed up to Europe. It typically starts happening in early August, usually completes in the second week or so, but now it is the second week of July. We're about to enter the third week of July, and it looks like it might complete by the time we start August, ladies and gentlemen, which is not what we want to hear. We're seeing more Sahara dust getting pushed up to Europe over here as the low pressure system over Mauritania starts to increase in strength. And you see a lot of this Sahara dust right here. You're starting to notice it. We have a huge amount of Sahara air that's over the Azores Islands and in the subtropical Atlantic. That gets pushed up to Europe. So what that's telling me is we're starting to see a huge pattern change in the Sahara dust, where before it was doing a decent job of blocking tropical development from happening. But now that we're seeing at least half of the Sahara air layer from 10 days out pushed further into Europe, that's giving me the indication that, hey, this is going to be a huge pattern change, and it's going to happen a little earlier than we were anticipated, coupled with another factor that we are paying attention to here on the Pat's Path Predictor, and that is the Madden-Julian Oscillation, or MJO for short. Right now, the MJO has been kind of quiet. as it's been moving through the Atlantic and then the Indian Ocean. It is over the maritime continent as a weak MJO right now. But I've been looking at some MJO forecasts, and shout out to Alex Baller and my guys at Storms United, my tropical team at Storms United, for telling me this. But the MJO is expected to be over the Eastern Pacific in sometime in the last week of July, and then it's expected to move over the Atlantic either very late in July or very early in August. And the reason that is important is because what the MJO does is it increases convection across much of the tropics right there, and that therefore it also increases the vorticity in those convection bursts right there, and it allows for, essentially in layman's terms, it allows for more convection to fire up and a much higher probability of tropical activity happening while the MJO is over a certain region. That's why when you see the MJO, you see more tropical cyclones maybe in the Western Pacific Ocean or in the Indian Ocean while in the given time, because the MJO is over there and allowing for much more convection to fire up. That's definitely a factor we're paying attention to right here. It's definitely a factor that we're going to have to get more information for you on. But look how fast the MJO is moving right now. Before, it was moving very slowly, and throughout the entire month of June right here, it's moving very slowly in a very weak phase over the Western Hemisphere in Africa. It started to speed up a little bit. It went through a loopy-loop. Look how fast that's moving right there. Look how fast the MJO is moving according to this, the Australian Bureau of Meteorology right there. They are tracking this, and I've been using this for quite a lot, and they've been doing a great job with this. But this is now expected to enter the maritime continent. It's going to move through the Western Pacific and then get to the Western Hemisphere and Africa in the next little while. How the MJOs it moves at a westerly direction, or it moves to the east in layman's terms. Essentially, what that direction means is that right now it's over the maritime continent. It's going to move into the Pacific Ocean, move into the Eastern Pacific Ocean in the next couple of weeks or so, and then move right over the Atlantic as we get into very late in July or very early in August. That's essentially all that means right there. It's essentially tracking the location of it. And how strong this MJO is kind of dependent on this chart right there. So the further out it is in this chart, the stronger the MJO is in layman's terms. So that's just kind of an overview of why we are watching this right here. And this is expected to break out in the next little while or so. We're going to have to pay very, very close attention to that. But one thing the MJO does not take into account is wind shear. But based off of this map right here, it doesn't exactly have to. Because what we're seeing with the wind shears, we're seeing a lot more green and a lot less red. Essentially, what the red represents is an unfavorable environment for tropical development. What the green represents is a very favorable environment for tropical development. And what we're seeing is, we're still seeing some pockets of wind shear right here that are of like 30 knots of wind shear, so around 40 in the Caribbean. But compared to where we were 2 weeks ago, this wind shear is very reminiscent of something you'd see in early August. So what this is telling me is the ENSO region has fully kicked in. It's fully affecting the atmosphere. It's weakening the trade winds, and it's weakening the shear along with it. And it's doing it in real time for you, ladies and gentlemen. As before, what we were seeing a lot of unfavorable conditions across much of the subtropics and parts of the main development region, as well as a much larger area of unfavorable conditions in the Caribbean Sea. Now, they're all a lot more isolated. And considering the fact that we're starting to see a more active pattern in the next couple of weeks, this is why I'm paying attention to it, because the wind shear has been dropping like a rock. Yes, it's going to oscillate up and down, up and down, up and down as it goes down there, but it has been trending very downward, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why I am so concerned with this chart right here. Like, this is something I did not expect to see when I started analyzing this morning. I was expecting, more pockets of wind shear and everything like that, but holy hell, this is pretty insane to say the very least. And this is pretty incredible looking at these kind of charts and all the years I've been doing this. It's quite a ridiculous drop-off from what we were seeing at this current point. Let's go ahead and pull up the shear forecast for you from the European model right here. Let's go ahead and go to the 20850 millibar shear. Right now, what you're seeing across the Atlantic Ocean is a very low amount of shear across the main development region, parts of the Caribbean, especially in the Gulf of Mexico. Go ahead and let me show you this. Gulf of Mexico, except outside of one area in the extreme western Gulf that's around 20 knots, you're looking at 5 to 10 knots of wind shear, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this is on its own, very favorable for development, but you don't see any tropical waves or tropical cyclones moving through at the current point. Also, there is some dry air over there, so I wanted you to keep that in mind. But considering what we're seeing, it's pretty concerning to say at the very least what we're looking at. Let's go ahead and show you what the shear forecast looks like. Yeah, you are going to see those fluctuations. You're going to see increases and decreases. Even in the eastern main development region, yeah, you're going to see a bit of an increase of that and to the intertropical convergence zone. But you're noticing right here, the oscillations go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, which is pretty insane to say the very least. We're trying to load up more frames for you guys to show you what we're looking at full time right here. It's kind of having a little bit of a hard time doing that. But the fact that we're seeing this, yeah, you're going to see a bit of an increase of wind shear across much of the Caribbean, much of the Atlantic, these areas right there, at least for the time being. That's going to start to decrease as we get into early August right there. This is probably going to be the last hurrah before the massive onslaught of activity starts when the MJO kicks in and when pretty much all the shear goes away. And we're already seeing the Sahara dust, like I said earlier, moving about half of its contents over to Europe in the next 10 days instead of over the mid-Atlantic, not the mid-Atlantic, the subtropical Atlantic, and the tropical Atlantic. So we're already seeing that shift. Last year, we saw that shift starting around August 2nd or so on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. Now it's July 14th. We're about 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks earlier than that in the season, and this is kind of a situation where, when it comes to it reminds me a lot of like 2005 and 2017 and 2020, a bit of a combination of the three, a little bit. That's kind of what this pattern is kind of showing me right here. 2017 had a shear pattern that reminded me exactly of this right here. It started off relatively strong, and then then the oscillations got weaker and weaker, and we started to see a massive drop off of shear in July. But granted, we didn't really have very much tropical activity. We didn't really have an explosive a monsoon season in this hell until July or so, and that's when things started ramping up. So that's what we're paying attention to right here with the shear. That's what we're paying attention to the moisture. We're going to have to keep an eye on it as we get more data and more information. But another thing I'm concerned about, another thing I haven't taken into account yet, which I always do, is the global sea temperatures. Now they have leveled off a little bit for a few days, but I fully expect this to continue to surge as we get into the rest of July, as we continue to August, and as we continue to September. That's exactly what's going to happen. Here's the global sea surface temperatures we have pulled up for you right here. A lot of this is pretty interesting, and a lot of this it's not as extreme in some areas of the Atlantic as we were seeing at this point last year. We were seeing over 100 degrees Fahrenheit of water across much of Florida. It was killing the coral. We're not seeing that extreme amounts of water temperatures, but we are seeing about 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit for those living in the United States of water across much larger area than what we were seeing. We aren't even technically seeing a lot of this going on in the Caribbean just yet, and I fully expect that to really just ramp up as we get later into July and as we continue to get into August. I fully expect the Gulf of Mexico to be 30 plus degrees Celsius this year. I fully expect that to happen. The trends, both climatologically and at least what we're seeing on the ground, is going to prove that we could see some pockets in here of around 32 degrees Celsius or so, which is almost 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That is rocket fuel for these hurricane systems right here. And as we continue to look, I'm going to go ahead and scroll this over to the main development region. Yeah, we are seeing a little bit of a breakdown in the 28 degrees Celsius waters over here, but that can be attributed to more of an active monsoon season and more tropical waves coming off of the coast of Africa right here. I don't expect this to fully degrade or anything like that. I fully expect that to hold on and continue to strengthen a little bit as we continue to have more storms moving through. But what this pertains to is ocean heat content right here. Essentially, ocean heat content, I know I've been saying this like a broken record, is essentially the measurement of how warm the water is at the surface and how deep down that goes. That's the layman's terms version of it. It's a bunch of calculus and dynamics. We're not going to get into that. But what we are going to get into is a few areas that I am concerned about. Looking at the OHC map, first of all, we did not see this much OHC this far up to the north. Like, we did not see this last year. We didn't even see this in 2020. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and go back to July 14th, 2023 for you guys, just to show you what we're taking a look at, just for comparison. I know we do a lot of comparisons here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel, but we kind of have to at this current point. Okay, this is a perfect map right here. July 15th, 2023. Look at this. We were not seeing nearly as much OHC past 30 degrees north where the tropics end. We were not seeing nearly as much of that. Now what we're seeing right here, we're seeing pockets of 50 plus OHC at 40 degrees north in latitude. You do not see this at all. I don't think this has ever happened in human history right here. I mean, it probably has happened at some points in history, but you don't see this in recorded history, ladies and gentlemen. And that's pretty concerning to say the very least. Another area I'm concerned about is the Caribbean Sea. Look at how much OHC the Caribbean Sea has. Has over 150 in a lot of areas right here. Remember, this is after Hurricane Beryl. And Beryl did virtually nothing to lower the OHC values. And it did virtually nothing to cool down the sea surface temperatures in the Caribbean. The reason why was because it was moving too fast. It was moving at an average speed of around 18 to 20 miles per hour. That's not slow enough for a hurricane to upwell enough water to cool it down. So that's one area I'm concerned. Another area concerned is the Gulf of Mexico. You see a very persistent loop current right here with over 150 OHC up there as well. For mid-July, that's pretty insane. You would typically see this in mid to late August right here, not July. And I fully expect this to increase, but there's another area in the Gulf I'm concerned about. I'm rolling my mouse over this right here. That is an eddy, ladies and gentlemen. That is a rotating area of very warm water and very deep warm water that's isolated from the Gulf Stream right here. The reason I'm concerned about this is because eddies like this, if a tropical system moves through that, can really enhance their intensification. We saw this with Hurricane Ida in 2021. What ended up happening was it was starting to level off in intensity a little bit. It was trying to reorganize, and then it entered an eddy with an OHC value of 225. For those of you who do not know how much 225 OHC is, what you see on the map, that chart right there only goes up to 175, and everything past that, it's in this very maroon brownish color. 225 in this case is off the charts. And we all know what this does. 50 OHC is good for good conducive strengthening. 100 OHC is good for rapid strengthening. 225, that is bonkers, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why I'm so concerned about this, because what OHC essentially is fuel that the hurricane can use for intensification purposes. And I was paying attention to this since October, but this is why I was worried that no hurricanes went through the Caribbean Sea last year. Because what hurricanes do, they cool the waters thanks to upwelling. That's their purpose. That's why they're here on this planet. But we didn't see that last year. All that OHC stayed. And now look where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. This is something we're going to have to pay close attention to. We're already seeing very concerning signs that the tropics are going to wake up in the next couple of weeks. And I will absolutely keep you updated on everything we have here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. Remember to be prepared for hurricane season. I know I've said a lot of bad news for you guys today, But remember one thing, okay? Do not panic. Don't go out there and say, oh, it's going to be a horrific hurricane season. It's about to start. We still have some time before it happens. Use this time to prepare. Use this time to contact loved ones. Tell them to prepare. And I'll keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. We're going to close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us make more videos like these. Remember, the goal of this channel, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. And if you want to come hang out with us at Storms United and talk tropics, be sure to join our Discord server. Link to that is right over there. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.